Yes, ma'am. Yes, we can start.
Yeah, please start.
Thank you, sir. A very pleasant evening to all distinguished panelists and participants. Bharati Vidyapeeth Institute of Computer Applications and Management, BVI CAM, in association with Computational Intelligence Society, CIS chapter of IEEE Delhi section, Computer Society chapter of IEEE Delhi section, Technology and Engineering Management Society, TEMS chapter of IEEE Delhi section, System, Man and Cybernetics SMC Society chapter of IEEE Delhi section, Communication Society of IEEE Delhi section, Consultants Network Affinity CNA Group of IEEE Delhi section, Life Member Affinity LMA Group of IEEE Delhi section, Inter-Society Relations IRS Standing Committee of IEEE Delhi section, Industry Relations and Special Interest Group on Humanitarian Technology Site Standing Committee of IEEE Delhi section, with the Associations of Computer Society of India, Institute of Information Technology Professionals IITP, ISTE Delhi section, and IETE Delhi Center as technical collaborators. Welcome you all today to this webinar on connected vehicles, the road ahead. It is a moment of pride and honor to announce that we, with united hands, mark special contribution for the monumental occasion of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, an initiative to celebrate 75 years of glorious independence by organizing the thought-provoking sessions for our better future. This webinar is also an initiative for the celebration of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. According to Julian Blissett, GM, Executive Vice President, and President of GM China. Our ultimate vision is a system that will enable hands free transportation in 95% of all driving scenarios. The above quote is actually the tip of the iceberg where General Motors plans to launch vehicles capable of 5G connectivity for Chinese consumers beginning in 2022. The fourth industrial revolution, facilitated by the emerging technologies like the edge and 5G, is impacting the existing manufacturing, industrial, and transportation processes multidimensionally. This webinar aims to understand important issues like digital transformation, the connected world, connected vehicles, overview and the value chain, car, motorbikes, etc. Major trends in connected vehicles like smartphone adoption, vehicle telematics, IVI, Indian Vehicle In-Vehicle Infotainment, ADAS, CV2X, UX, key challenges, and the research trends, evolution towards edge, 5G, etc. Today's webinar aims to discuss the various aspects of these transformer technologies. I would first take this opportunity to welcome amongst us our distinguished panelists for the day. We are privileged to have amongst us a galaxy of experts. I would first request Professor M.N. Huda sir, Director, Bharati Vidyapeeth Institute of Computer Applications and Management BVI CAM, and Vice Chairperson IEEE Delhi section, to address the participants with his inspiring words.
Good evening, one and all. Am I audible, Dr. Ritika?
Yes, sir.
Good evening, one and all. At the outset, let me take this opportunity to welcome my valued speaker for today's webinar on connected vehicles, the road ahead, Mr. Vijay Anand. Mr. Vijay is connecting again, and on the topic of connected vehicles, is connecting with us from United States of America, and it is probably around 8 a.m. at America. So thank you so much, Mr. Vijay, for having accepted my request and being with all of us to enlighten us and make us to understand that how and in which way the connected vehicles are going to be the future, and in which way it is going to be beneficial and transform the entire transportation industry. I also take this opportunity to welcome all my friends from various professional societies and from various parts of the country, academia, industry, from all across the world who keep on waiting for our webinar. So take this opportunity to welcome you all. As all of you know, that this IEEE IET BBICAM webinar series was started way back in May 2020 in the backdrop of COVID-19. And since then, with few exceptions, we are continuing this webinar series. This is 95th of such webinar and probably one of the most sought after series of the country, which is being conducted with such consistency and continuity. So thank you so much for joining us. Dear friends, today's topic is very important. The topic is connected vehicles. And when we are talking of connected vehicles, that too in the backdrop of Industrial Revolution 4.0, where we have started talking about 5G and around in 13 or 23 cities in the country, 5G has already been launched. And Industrial Revolution 5.0 is already on the card. So under this backdrop, we are talking about connected vehicles. Mr. Vijay is with all of us to enlighten us that to which extent this is going to touch every one of us and to which extent it will be beneficial. But primarily, we need to understand that the way Internet of Things, Internet of Everything, and Industrial Internet of Things have connected each and every object in and around us, the vehicles will be no exceptions. And of course, there will be huge benefit which may be enabling us a kind of seamless traveling experiences within cities, outside the cities, and possibly their operations will be very streamlined, but very seamless. But at the same time, we all of us are aware that when we are talking about connecting anything on internet, challenges will also increase. So when challenges are increasing, we have to be alert enough, we have to be vigilant enough, we have to be tech savvy, that how to ensure that the things which are which are for constructive purposes, which are for benefit should be utilized, and how not to malhandle, or so that the kind of the technology which may create disaster should not happen. And that's how it is always said that once you connect any device to the internet, the potential of the risk will be too high. And in the backdrop of that kind of environment, when security, cyber criminals, and kind of unauthorized intruders are coming every day, so all these aspects need to be deliberated at length and need to be understood. The topic is so evolving that maybe 1 hour may not be sufficient enough to discuss all this. But yes, the purpose of today's session is to sensitize all of you that how and in which way this is going to come. And if you have interest in that, then you can go further and mine the different kind of possibilities, and out of your mining you may understand and you may explore many things in and around us. So let's take this opportunity to welcome Mr. Vijay with this background note that the technology has come a long way, and a long way is yet to be traveled by the technology. And every coming day, the changes are going to come, and the changes will be in and around us. And that's how I always say that there is nothing constant in this world except change. It's only the change which is constant, nothing else is constant. And that's how we need to embrace the change. We need to accept the change. We need to adapt the change, and that too in a proactive manner. Because if we do not adapt to the changes, probably the changing ecosystem will change us. And we have seen in case of many such technological advancement. And one more thing which I always say about Industrial Revolution 4.0, that till Industrial Revolution 3.0, in fact, the technology models were revolving around the business model. But now the Industrial Revolution 4.0 says that in fact the business models are revolving around the technology, and the traditional business models are no more applicable. And that's how the people have started talking about re-engineering their business processes. And this is again, the business model in academia is changing, business models in various business houses are changing, and possibly the centuries old business model which were performing in a much better way are now no more performing. So under this changing environment, I always say that let's welcome change with this note that ओ टेक्नोलॉजी के मुसाफिर तुम्हें अभी बहुत दूर जाना है, ओ टेक्नोलॉजी के मुसाफिर तुम्हें अभी बहुत दूर जाना है, पत्थरों पे गुलाब खिलाना है और आंधियों में चिराग जलाना है. That future is before all of us. So let's welcome. Thank you so much. Wish you all the best. God bless you all. Stay safe, stay healthy, and be vibrant. Keep attending lecture sessions like this because this will keep you engaged in constructive purposes. एंड जैसे अमिताभ बच्चन कहा करते थे, अगले एपिसोड में फिर हम मिलेंगे, तो अगले सैटरडे एक नए टॉपिक के साथ फूलों की तरह फिर खिलेंगे हम, फूलों की तरह फिर खिलेंगे हम, और अगले सैटरडे एक नए टॉपिक के साथ फिर मिलेंगे हम. विश यू ऑल द बेस्ट. गॉड ब्लेस यू ऑल. ओवर टू यू, डॉक्टर रितिका.
Thank you, sir. I would now welcome amongst us our expert speaker, Mr. Vijay Anand, Senior Director, Technology and Chief IoT Architect at Cape Gemini, USA, with an e-bouquet.
डॉक्टर रितिका, ये ई बुके के बजाय आपकी स्क्रीन शेयर होगी.
Yes, sir. No, Uttam sir is just doing it. That is a small technical glitch that we have.
Yeah, now it is coming.
Very warm welcome to Vijay sir. Mr. Vijay Anand is the Senior Director, Technology and Chief IoT Architect at Cape Gemini. With his roles, he plays a strategic leadership role in building connected X solutions in a number of market segments, including consumer IoT and industrial IoT, by providing high value services to global customers. He has over 3 decades of experience and has published many research papers and award winning articles in very well known publications with publishers like IEEE. So we are honored to have you amongst us, sir, today. And I welcome you to this session and will now request you to enlighten the house. Over to you, Vijay, sir.
Yeah. Thanks, ma'am, for the introduction. Thanks, Mr. Honda, for the inspiring speech. It always motivates for us to, do, much more things in our life as well. Thanks a lot, sir. Let me share my screen and
Yes, sir.
you could see my screen, no, ma'am.
Absolutely, sir.
So good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining this session. So this particular topic is more about the connected vehicles aspects, right? How we see the market is evolving to a greater extent with the various the use cases applications that people are thinking of enabling in the connected car ecosystem. And one of the specific element which I thought I will cover in this particular topic is more on edge computing. So in connected car, there are a lot of applications, use cases, right, to enable it. But the most challenging part is to see that, right, how do you process various data that gets generated from the car, and how do we monetize and then manage the overall ecosystem. So that's one of the biggest challenge that we come across in the industry. And this particular session, I will be talking about more from the element of the edge part, in a way to see that how we are able to handle all the data closer to the car network, and how we could able to see a better value out of it. So that would be the key message I would be covering it out in this particular session. And also I will talk about some of the emerging trends that we see from the 5G technology standpoint, the way people are thinking of enabling 5G in the car, and what are the other applications, use cases, and some element on the digital twin as well. So these are the outline that been identified for this particular session. And then feel free to post your questions wherever you would like to clarify in the chat box. And then at the end of the session, I will try to cover what what are best I could do in answering most of the questions as well. So before I start, the specific topic about edge, but always I would like to bring from the element of the problem statements that we always see in the connected vehicle ecosystem. So why we have to go for connected car or connected vehicles? What it makes sense for us to know bring out a lot of intelligence inside the car and how it is going to help us in our day-to-day life. So that's where, right, the whole element of connected vehicle is all about. There are two parts into it. One, more in the context of safety. That's where the larger focus has been, and then the other element is also more from a convenience standpoint. But what is being looked at today in the connected vehicle is a more from a safety standpoint, to see that how we could able to avoid a lot of accidents, right, that we see in our day-to-day life, and then how a technology or a kind of a solution that could enable inside the car could be able to help us preventing some of the accidents, because a lot of life is at stake, right, while we drive the car, when we're at a higher speed, beyond the limits of what the guidelines has been provided by the transportation. But more and more accidents, right, that we keep hearing in our day-to-day life, and we are also watching practically as well. So the connected vehicle ecosystem is all about right, how do we bring out a more and more safety inside the car that should be able to prevent the various accidents, and what more advantages that could be provided for both a driver as well as a passenger, which will help, which will basically help to have a convenient way of driving the vehicle as well, right? So that's the way, right, the market has been evolving to an extent to see that what kind of technologies, right, the ideas that can go inside the car, which will perhaps helps to address the various problem statement that we come across in our day-to-day life. So if you look at from a digital transformation perspective, it was started with the M2M about 10 years back, where the concept was more about having a device talking to another device, and how an intelligence can be brought within the device itself, right, without having a human intervention. So today, if you want to control any device, yeah, there should be an user who has to have an application and then able to use that application to control the device. But however, the thought process was more about bringing out an intelligence within the device itself, so that two devices should be able to talk each other and able to exchange some information and able to bring out some sort of convenience or some sort of safety purpose. So that's the way, right, the M2M was started, and later it was evolved into an internet of things, in a way to see that how you'd be able to connect with various gadgets and devices over an internet pipeline, and then how do we control of devices, right, in a different ecosystem altogether, whether it is a consumer market or it is industrial market, how we could able to bring out a lot of gadgets, devices that could able to talk each other. And then the other angle what also came out was is the internet of everything, which was the concept came out by Cisco, in a way to see that how we could also bring some process into the ecosystem that should be able to bring out a much more value altogether. And then the other transformation what we see is the Internet of Vehicles. So how do we bring out a connectivity in the car, whether it's a two-wheeler or four-wheeler, how we could able to bring out a much more intelligence, so that the vehicles can also talk each other and able to bring out much more value for for the drivers or for the passengers, right, and who will be there inside the car. So the connected vehicles is all about how you would able to communicate the various ecosystems within the car. That's the most element which was started, and then how the vehicle can also communicate with some of the gadgets and devices, right, that you try to have it inside the car. How that a smartphone can talk to the the head unit platform which is there inside the car. Today we use our Android phones or iPhones, right, for CarPlay and Android Auto. So that's where the element of connectivity that you try to bring out from your phone to the ecosystem, and then how the car can also communicate with the cellular network, which we call it as a vehicle to infrastructure, and how the car can also communicate other vehicles, which could be a four-wheeler, it could be a two-wheeler, and how the V2V element, that's what we call today the vehicle to vehicle communication, can be established. So this is how the the way, right, the ecosystem has been evolving, and people today also talking about autonomous car without driver, right, how the car can also move from one end to another end. That's the other the research which has been going on. There are successful deployments which is also happening. So today, if you see from an Internet of Vehicles standpoint, it's more about bringing out the connectivity within the ecosystem, and then how do you bring out the connectivity outside of the car ecosystem by connecting to a cloud, by connecting to an infrastructure, by connecting to another vehicles. That's the way, right? The transformation is happening. And what is more important for a person to know about how my car is performing, how a driver I am able to perform, without a drowsiness, and how do I monitor the road conditions, how do I monitor the traffic conditions, and then able to take my decision, for going in a better path. So these are some of the the information, right, that you'd able to have access from the car and able to make certain decisions accordingly. So the trends that you see in the connected car are being classified into five broader buckets. We could look at it. The first bucket is the smartphone adoption. I think to a greater extent today, which is already available in the various car models. So if you look at 5-7 years back, this was a major trend people have been working on to see that how you could able to connect your phone to the head unit platform, because a car was not having an wireless connectivity intelligence at that point of time. So how do you use your phone to connect with your head unit platform, and then bring out some applications which is more relevant for the driver to monitor from the display panel instead of watching the phone, right? Which is very hard for a driver to look at the phone and then drive the car. So it's always better to have a display panel closer to the driver so that he would able to have access to certain applications and then able to drive the car properly. So that's where the basic and the mandatory thing came into picture. And it's not that whatever applications that you have it on the phone, you try to replicate on the display. That is not the intent. So when you look up, when you look at the CarPlay, it's more about a mandatory applications, where the mandatory applications are like GPS, which is the most critical information. And apart from that, you will also have some sort of a music player application, as well as the incoming call that you could able to handle it for any critical scenarios, right? That you want to look at it. So that's where the CarPlay and Android Auto, the kind of solutions started coming out in the market, which will perhaps helps the driver to connect his phone to the head unit platform and able to bring out some critical applications, right? That could be visualized on the car head unit platform with a smaller display, right? Most of the cars today, brings as a part of an intelligence. The other trend, what you see, the other bucket is the vehicle management and monitoring. This is one of the most critical and important stuff today. I know the OEMs are trying to bring out a service when they make a sale of the car, is to see that how the OEMs could monitor the car performance now continuously, and then provide an immediate service altogether. So if you look at from an vehicle management, vehicle telematics standpoint, there are a lot of sensors, right, that you have inside the car, where you have to keep collecting data, whether it is an engine data or the temperature data, okay, and then the oil level data. There are multiple parameters, which I will talk about it in my next module. So a lot of data, right, that needs to be collected, monitored, and it has to be analyzed in a way so that the OEMs who are making a sale, like whether it is Honda, Hyundai, Toyota, Nissan, so they should be able to provide a better service by monitoring the car performance. This is one of the most critical trend that we also see in today's context as well. And this is something we are also helping some of our customers in building the solutions. So in this particular trend, right, you will have challenges basically in terms of managing the data. That's where my session will be covering it out today. While we look at from a vehicle telematics, there are huge amount of data. How do you monitor the data, whether you do it on the car network by doing some operations and then do something on the cloud, or how do you manage the overall ecosystem, is one of the biggest challenge, right? Given the kind of network infrastructure which is available today across the globe. So that's the other trend. The third trend, what you see, is more about the infotainment part, and then the surveillance part as well. So infotainment is not for the driver; it's basically for the passengers to see that while you are driving along with the family. So I know for the kids or for the I know the family members might be more relevant. So how do you handle the I know the infotainment ecosystem right by pulling the content either locally I know from the head unit which might be pre-stored, or you try to fetch from your home network or from the cloud platform, and then able to stream the content and then provide a better experience for the passengers as well. That's the other trend. The fourth trend, what you see, is the ADAS, what we call it as Advanced Driver Assistance System. This is again a most critical part, from a safety standpoint. How do you bring out, more, facilities, the features for the driver, in terms of, the drowsiness that he has to monitor, whether he himself is sleeping, or the vehicle is going at the proper speed or not. So that's the aspect, right, that you look at it from a ADAS standpoint. The other one is a collision warning ecosystem, and then road assistance. There are multiple aspects, right, that comes as a part of ADAS, and that's where, right, the V2X angle comes into picture, in a way to see that how the vehicle could be able to communicate to another vehicle for the collision avoidance monitoring, or how the vehicle can communicate to the infrastructure, for monitoring, for getting some sort of traffic data. So a lot of aspects, right, that comes as a part of your ADAS along with the C2X. And last but not the least is a HMI, that you try to look at it, from a user experience standpoint, how you'd be able to bring out a digital experience for the drivers, so that the information that gets transmitted from the cluster, becomes much more, much more visible for him to get a lot of information in one shot. Right, today most of the cars has an mechanical clusters, right, for monitoring your speed as well as the other parameters. Today all those things are going out, and then people are bringing out a digital experience that should be able to provide a better information to the driver as well, in terms of monitoring your tire pressures, in terms of monitoring your fuel level. Everything will be more digitalized in a way to see that, right, the information and provides much relevant for the end user as well. Some of the cars which I see today in US are all based on I know the digital way of having the information, not the the mechanical meters people are using it in the latest car models as well. So in a nutshell, if you look at it, these are the five broader trends that you will see from a connected car or from a connected vehicle standpoint. And then this particular session will be covering more on this second box that I would be highlighting to an extent, plus some of the elements about the infotainment, or from a surveillance standpoint, with respect to the video data, right, that you may have to handle it at the edge of the car network. So the classical value chain that you see from the connected vehicles, for many of you guys who like to understand how the car ecosystem works, so you could basically classify into four verticals. So one of the element is more from an car perspective. The OEMs who manufacture cars will provide most of these the systems which comes as a part of your car purchase, which will be your head unit, the telematics control unit, and then there will be a lot of sensors, right? The LiDAR sensor, radar sensors, the ultraviolet sensors, for for various safety applications, and then the rear seat entertainment panel, and then how do you handle the system integration within the vehicles, and then developing different applications as well. The other element is the connectivity, because the car needs to communicate to the OEM data center, could be with 4G or 5G, and within the car it could be Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. So these are some of the other elements. And then how do you use your smartphone in terms of connecting with your car head unit platform over USB, or with Wi-Fi, or Bluetooth. So that could be the way, right, you look at the connectivity standpoint: connectivity inside the car, connectivity outside of the car. And then the third one is the OEM data center, where the OEMs monitor the car performance by collecting the data, and then they takes care of the billing, and then the other aspects as well. For any of the services that the OEM provides, and the OEM will have connectivity with the content providers, or with the platform providers, specifically for leveraging various intelligence, right, and the cloud platform providers will bring on the table in the context of machine learning or in terms of the data storage and data analytics, or some of the services, right, the OEM tries to leverage it from the platform providers. So typically, if you look at from the classical value chain, from a connected vehicle standpoint, these are the four broader aspects, right, that needs to be that comes into picture, and this is how the ecosystem typically works. So if you look at from the top 10 automotive industry trends, right, from the vehicle standpoint, there are multiple trends which has been highlighted here. This is from one of the report being collected. And there are various trends in terms of autonomous vehicles, connectivity for electric cars, it is electrification, and then AI, ML, blockchain, 3D printing. There are many things that comes as a part of your top 10 automotive trends. But I'll from this trends in today's session, I'll focus on the connectivity along with IoT and data analytics, and that's where the trends that we see in the automotive space, how some of these trends are are bringing out a more value add, and how the technologies is evolving is what, right. I'll try to bring it out as a part of this session. Okay, so with respect to vehicle telematics as a second trend that I highlighted in my first the module. So if you look at from the ecosystem standpoint within the car, there are a lot of data, right, that the car generates. I'm sure that everyone can understand to a greater extent. One of the data, what you always see is the engine data, right? So there are a lot of instruments that you said. There are a lot of mechanical elements that covers as a part of your car, and lot of sensors, right, that also been placed inside the car that in order to monitor your oil level or your engine temperature, or the performance of the engine. There are multiple information, right. You may have to collect it and see that how the car is performing in terms of speed or in terms of acceleration, in terms of brake conditions, tire pressures. So multiple parameters are there. That is one set of data, and you can imagine when the car is running for 10 hours, 12 hours, every second or every minute that you want to collect the data, the amount of data that you bring out from the car itself is pretty huge. It will be in terms of MB or in terms of GB level of data, size, right, that you will have it. When you want to monitor the car for every 1 minute, that runs for 10 hours or 12 hours in a day. The other data is the driving data. So it's more towards right, how the driver is using the car, and then how the behavior of the driver has been also is the other element, right, that needs to be considered. This driving data, it could also be monitoring the car driver face from a camera and see that, right, how the behavior has been, whether he has been sleeping, any drowsiness, right, that has been identified is one of the other data possibly have to be measured and monitored in order to avoid certain accidents as well. The other data could be the location data. So you have to keep looking at the location standpoint and then communicating that information to other users as well. So that's one of the other data, right, you may generate from your car. And then the safety data, it's more about different cameras that you place it around the car, and then try to take a decision to see that whether it is going to lead into any collision warning, or you are trying to be away from the lane, right, what you are supposed to drive, like is there is any lane departure warning information that needs to be provided. Some of this information, right, that you have to have with the various cameras that you position across the car, and how do you manage it. And then the other element is the V2X. So how do you also communicate a vehicle to pedestrian or vehicle to infrastructure? That's the other level of data, right, that you have to send and then receive. So typically, if you look at from a car ecosystem, there is a huge amount of data that you generate from the car. Now the question is that, like, how you are going to monetize this data, right? So whether you would like to send all the data to a cloud platform and then analyze and then make some decision and then send a response back to car to take some action around it, or how do you know handle the data? Because most of the scenarios, right, the data is so critical, it has to be analyzed very quickly and then some action have to be taken. It may not be possible for some of the critical applications to send the data to the cloud, which might lead into some network traffic, and then there could be a latency, and then taking a decisions might lead into the accidents at the end of the day as well. So that's the most challenging scenario in today's context, to see that how do you able to manage the the overall the data that gets generated from the car. So that is very crucial and important. And that's where, right, the edge computing comes into picture. So before I talk about it, typically if you look at from the car ecosystem, you will see a lot of sensors that are placed inside the car, and each and every sensor has its own a feature, right, to do certain action. And from the various sensors that you have inside the car, these are the realistic data, right, that you generate from the car ecosystem. The realistic data could be your fuel level, the vehicle speed, the battery health, the coolant temperature, the engine status, the tire pressure, average fuel, outside temperature. There are many no data, right, that you generate with various sensors, right, that you have it inside the car. And these data that you want to analyze and monitor, how the what mechanism, right, that needs to be looked at data. If for example, if all the data can be for example, the data can be passed everything to the cloud, and now the cloud could be able to do all the the activities, which is a centralized way of defining the ecosystem, where today many people do it. But the challenge, but if you say from the car ecosystem, is that like so much of data that you generate, per minute, or even per second, that you need to monitor. So the generation is so huge, and also you need to have a very good network throughput for you to dump so much of data to the cloud to do the analysis. That is one biggest challenge. So when you want to transmit so much of data, obviously you are wasting a lot of network bandwidth, and you also need a higher throughput as well to transmit the data. Second thing, it may not be ideal for mobility, because when the car is going to be at the speed of 80, 100 miles per hour, it is always there will be a challenge in terms of sending data at a high throughput and getting a response back. That will lead into some latency as well. And for some critical applications, it may not be a viable solution also. And the fourth important element is the security, because when you expose your car data to the internet world, and with the various connectivity, right, the data have to flow to the cloud and then pass to the cloud, and there is a way which people can hack the data as well. So there are the various challenges that you see when you want to transmit the car data to the external network for analyzing the data, where it leads into a lot of a network throughput that is needed, which also leads into some bandwidth, right? And then you also finally lead into a higher latency, and then security challenges. Most of these problems comes into picture. And the way the market is evolving with respect to the hardware platforms that are coming out in the market, is to see that, right, how do I manage all the most of the data that gets generated from the car within the car ecosystem itself. That's where, right, the data's the ecosystem is getting changed from centralized to decentralized. So when we say decentralized, you offload some of the cloud functionalities, what is expected to perform to the edge, so that you try to make most of the decisions on at the edge of the network itself, so that lot of the data processing gets handled at the edge of the network. So because the car generates the data, and then if you have your better data analytics framework enabled on the car head unit, which resides inside the car, it will basically helps you to manage various operations, and then able to bring out much more intelligence as well. So the edge computing, it's more about managing the data processing at the edge of the car network, which will be more towards managing the data, the modeling or the data processing, or some sort of critical data storage that you can have it in your local database as well. And these are the options, right, that you try to have it as a part of your the edge computing framework that resides inside your car head unit platform. So the processed data, whatever you might have, okay, so only the consolidated view of the data, right, can be sent to the cloud or to the OEM data center, no, for any long-term storage or historical analysis. And that's the advantage, right, that you try to try to do it at the edge by having an enhanced hardware platform along with the software framework that you enable it inside the car, which perhaps helps to avoid various challenges in terms of latency or security, or in terms of need of the higher than the throughput as well. Okay, so that's the advantage that you see from an edge computing standpoint. So the edge computing is it's not only for the text data, it's also for the video data. That's the other biggest aspect, because you have 15 to 20 cameras which are surrounded around your car. No, basically from a safety standpoint, and so much of video data that generated by the camera, it is not possible, for all the video data to be transmitted cloud. Obviously, you don't have that much of network bandwidth to transmit the data. So the video processing needs to be handled. No, at the edge of the car network. That is the most needed ecosystem today to handle the video data as well. So when we talk about edge computing, it's not just a telematics data alone. It's a telematics data plus a video data that you generate from the car, and how do you handle everything to a greater extent, within the car ecosystem itself. So this is what the concept behind the edge computing. And the way it works is more towards having the framework, that you have it in your car, where you basically collect the data, clean the data, and then extract the relevant information you want, and store some of the critical data in your local database, and then make some some decisions to see that, right, what immediate information, right, that needs to be provided to the driver or to the the passengers, right, from a car performance standpoint. And after making a lot of analysis, data processing, some of the data further, if you like to keep it to the cloud, those the processed data can be transmitted to the cloud, and then you can store some of the other information in the cloud in a separate database for doing any machine learning, or for doing any historical data analytics as well. So this is how, right, the hybrid model had been created, or been designed in most of the ecosystem, is to see that how do you manage most of the data processing at the edge of the car network, and then some amount of data processing on the cloud as well. So this will basically help you to provide a real-time alerts, and then it basically avoids some breakdown, and then reduce the maintenance cost. It will also help to monitor the driver's behavior, and it also provides some sort of analytics at the edge of the car network, to monitor and see that, right, how the car has been performing. So that's the way, right, you able to bring out the data analytics, a kind of framework that you decide, that you enable inside the car, that will perform some of these operations as well. But only a challenge that would come out is to see that, when you design the ecosystem, what are the relevant information, right, that I need to offload it from cloud to edge. Okay, and how do I design an optimal offloading scheme? Okay, how do I partition my analytics logic? Okay, so when you get into a technical architecture or an solution design, so some of the questions will come out from my customers to see that, okay, you would like to do an offload, so what kind of aspects, right, that you would like to offload, and then how do you want to make a very optimal design, so that even the customer doesn't spend too much of his money on the cloud platform, for paying the services, right, that needs to be leveraged from the cloud as well. That's the other cost perspective that comes into picture, right, when you want to use a cloud platform also. How much of functionalities that you try to do it at the edge of the car network within your hardware platform will perhaps helps the OEM to make the better the cost management system as well. well. So these are some of the aspects that needs to be considered when we get into the edge-based solution design for handling the telematics data. So the other thing what I was also mentioning, right, is the video data. So today, most of the accidents that happens is because of the drowsiness. Driver has from a long travel standpoint. Whenever we drive the car for more than 5 hours, 6 hours, we always get a tendency of getting into some sort of a sleepy mode, and then with a fraction of seconds, right, if you don't monitor the road properly, it leads into the accidents as well. So this is one of the biggest challenge, right, that we come across in our day-to-day life. And the way the OEMs are trying to bring out is to have a camera that will be monitor the driver face, and by the time the driver when the driver tries to get into some sort of sleepy mode, or he tries to close his eyes, right, it immediately generates an alert. So in order to do this functionality, right, it is not possible for you to send all the video data to the cloud and then have an image processing algorithm process it, and then again send the data back, and then making a trigger by the time, right, it can go into any state as well. So how do you analyze all this video data that being generated by a specific camera who monitors the driver face, and then process it locally on the edge of the car network, and then able to generate and trigger immediately, either by slowing the speed automatically or by generating an alert to the driver, so that he comes out from the speed mode and then active action. This is the other aspect that you see from a video standpoint, where how do you manage the data closer to the at the edge of the network itself. And the ADAS is the other aspect I was mentioning about. So advanced driver assistance system. So today, if you look at the ADAS framework, right, that needs to go into the car ecosystem. You need to have lot of sensors that should be able to detect the presence of the other car, and then ensure that, right, certain things are being taken care. For example, if the two cars are going at a constant speed, and the first car is trying to put a hard brake, obviously, right, the car that would be following might lead into an accident by going and hitting at the back. This is what the typical accidents we see. So the car manufacturers are trying to see that how you could provide some sort of mechanism which should be able to bring out a collision warning no, a trigger to the user, so that the driver would be able to control the brakes accordingly. So this is the other the mechanism, right, where people are trying to bring out an ADAS framework as a part of the ecosystem. Again, it's all more about collecting the data, processing the data, and then taking certain actions at the edge of the car network itself, whether it is lane departure warning, or a drowsiness, or the the adaptive cruise control, or the blind spot detection, eco driving, many applications features that has been identified as a part of ADAS. How do you have a framework enabled on the car ecosystem for handling, right, for bringing out an advantage for the driver, or for the other the passengers as well, in terms of providing certain information. So while there are various hardware equipments that goes inside the car, but what is more important is to have the software framework, right, that needs to run on the car, by having all the data being collected from some of the sensors, and then how do you process it, and then provide an immediate information to the user as well. That is more important. So in the meanwhile, what I'll just want to, while I talked about telematics, just want to share the blog that I have published recently. Let me share this. So with respect to telematics, whatever I had talked about it, right, so I had published a blog just a couple of months back that will give you more insights on, right, how the the telematics framework now have to be designed or to be enabled on the head unit platform. Down below the blog, there is a PDF. If you download that PDF, it has about some 25 to 30 pages of content. You will able to get more information about the problems, the challenges, right, that we typically see in the car ecosystem, and how some of those problem statements can be addressed, both with the hardware and the software framework as well. So just go through that blog along with the document. It will give you more insights, and any research that you guys want to do, from the telematics standpoint, you can get into the more details as well. The other part, what I was talking about, is the video. So today, if you look at from an autonomous car standpoint, so I'm sure that most of you guys might be aware of it. Google has been working for quite some time, and then there is a Waymo car model, right, which is more from an autonomous standpoint. Without driver, right, the car could able to move from one location to another location, where the car is surrounded with 29 cameras that is integrated around the vehicle, that collects a lot of information from these cameras. And then how do you able to drive the car in a way, right, that you want to move from one end to another end. So that's the classical example that you see, right, from the level of data that gets generated from the car. And the amount of data that you see is so huge, and obviously it is not possible for all the data to be processed on the cloud platform. It has to be processed very much closer to the car ecosystem. And you can imagine the kind of hardware platform that is needed, right, to process such a high end high quality video data as well. So this is the other trend that you see today. Right, the market is moving towards having a lot of sensors from a safety standpoint, and then how do you monetize and manage some of those data as well. And the third, the last one, what I would like to cover is the infotainment part. Again, from an infotainment standpoint, right, you could have a different sorts of applications, use cases inside the car, where it also needs some sort of data processing at the edge of the car network itself. For example, if you like to have a gesture-based technique inside the car, then you'll have a sensor, and then you could use your hand, specifically for increasing the volume or decreasing the volume, or increasing the AC temperature, in whatever the use cases, right, that the driver would like to use. For example, some of the drivers might be a little bit difficult for them to for example, some drivers might be a bit handicapped, and then they might try to hold one steering, one hand on the steering, and then try to just use that hand little bit here and there to see that, right, how do you control your the other aspects of your car ecosystem. So places, right, where driver would like to use the gesture based mechanism, would be the way, right, that you see how do you manage some of those data processed locally in the car network itself. The other element would be the media sharing. So either you take the content from the cloud, and then share that video content to the other end users, or you have the local content stored in your car head unit platform, and then use some of the technologies like DLNA to share the content commonly to the entertainment panel as well. So this could be some of the way, right, that you could see from the way, right, the video data are getting processed from the infotainment standpoint. So I'll also share you one more link from the safety standpoint, so that you guys could also. So I've shared few blogs, that will help you to understand a bit more on how this safety aspects are being covered, telematics as well as the infotainment part. So infotainment is again a biggest aspect to see that, right? When you try to execute the video data, which is a high definition data, how do you handle some of this video data inside the car network, and obviously they have to decode and then able to render the content. Again, need to have a very high end processing capability as well. Obviously, when you have a surveillance camera inside the car, then this particular car data, right, it needs to be transmitted to the end user who would like to monitor the car remotely when the car has been parked in a garage or in some remote location. So there is a video, right, that you may have to process it and then take some quick snapshots and then share it to the end user as well. So again, the video processing at the edge also makes much more relevant as well. So yeah, so these are the possible use cases. Mean to say that from an age standpoint, how critical the system has to be in terms of processing the telematics and processing the video, both in the context of convenience as well as in the context of safety. And then I'll just quickly talk about the challenges that would come when you want to process the data, and then how do you communicate to the external network as well. For example, if you see from this diagram, there is a connectivity anyway needs to happen with the OEM data center. And since car is going to be at the mobility always with the 80-90 miles per hour, car has a aspect of not losing its connection as well. So the car needs to have a connectivity always, with the cellular network, and wherever the signal strength goes for a toss, either with 4G or 5G network or 3G network, wherever whichever network where the car might be getting connected, you need to have a mechanism to see that how seamlessly you would able to switch over from one network to another network, which is more important. So the switching could be from 3G to 4G or from 4G to 5G, or when you park your car at some of the coffee shops at Starbucks, where you have a free Wi-Fi hotspot available. How do you seamlessly switch over to the free Wi-Fi network and able to have the connectivity always? So connectivity plays a very major role, and you have to keep in mind that how the car can always have a connectivity in terms of communicating the information to the OEM data center or to the end users, where the connectivity is pretty much important. The other, so this is how the framework that you look at it. So you try to pick up data from different layers, and then and make a decision to see that which network is going down and which network is having a better quality, and then how do you switch over from one network to another network. So this is the way, right, that you see and the framework running inside the car. And then the other challenge is the security, because once you expose the data to the internet world, there are various ways that the hackers can hack the data. So you need to have a very good, security mechanism, enabled in the car ecosystem, to see that, right, the car, and the hackers, are not hacking the critical data, and then able to simulate that data as well. So the security plays a very major role, in the car ecosystem, and there are a lot of questions that needs to be asked. To see that, right, how do you want to handle the security part. So from where the vehicle is basically connecting, to which element of the vehicle is actually communicating, how many ports are open, and then okay, how you're saving the data inside the car head unit platform. Today, if you look at from the hardware platform perspective, there is an element called TPM. It's called Trusted Platform Module, or the Trusted Execution Environment. So most of the car manufacturers select the SoCs to see that, right, there is a TPM that comes as a part of the silicon, so that a lot of important information gets stored in the very secured memory area, so that the hackers cannot hack the data. So that's the way, right, the trend is all about, and that's the way, right, people are trying to say that how the hacking mechanism, I mean to say how the secured information can be managed, so that the hackers are not able to hack the critical data, and then able, and then simulate the the overall ecosystem as well. Yeah, so the high level approach, if you look at it in terms of handling your, the edge computing is more about having a framework that runs inside your, the car head unit, or you call it as a vehicle head unit platform, where the data could be your CAN data, or it could be the driver data, or your surveillance data, whatever data, right, that you capture, from your car, and how do you, process it within the car ecosystem, and then having an edge computing engine by doing some configuration policies on various the data packets, and how do you handle the the overall logic within the car ecosystem. And yeah, so that's the way, right? I just want to bring my the conclusion around this age. So um, as I mentioned, right, like there are huge amount of devices that you see inside the car, and sending so much of data outside of the car for any processing, it always leads into various challenges. Because most of the data, being sent to the cloud, some of the data you will not even have any, value as well, and that data will not be even used also. So why do you want to waste the resources, and why do you want to waste the storage of the cloud for some of the irrelevant data, right? That might even get not transmitted from your car ecosystem. So the whole important element is to say that how do you handle your the data processing within the car ecosystem, which should able to analyze the most sensitive data, and then save a lot of network bandwidth, and then use that data, critical data, in some of the database locally in the car, for any quick analytics that is needed. And that also helps you to manage the the security, able to manage your the data latency, and then able to see a better performance altogether. So the latency is one of the critical part, and that's where the trends are all evolving, even from an car-to-car communication perspective. 5G being considered since, because with the mmWave kind of technology, right? When you enable 5G, you'd able to see less than 1 millisecond latency. So latency plays a very major role for you to take some decisions based on the data that would have been collected from different sources as well. Yeah, so some publications that I made on these specific topics, basically to share our thought leadership to our customers, are some of the articles, right, that I have shared. And one more link, I'll just share it. This is more on the connectivity. So this is on the motorcycle work that we have also done, for one of our customer, and this will might also help you to understand the way that the two-wheeler market segment has been evolving. And again, this particular topic is more on the connectivity part, the seamless connectivity that I was talking. So how do you manage the connectivity from one network to another network automatically, whenever there is a degrade in the signal strength from one of the network. With that, how do you manage the safety and other aspects as well? Go through some of these articles that will give you more detailed information. Obviously, in 1 hour session, we may not able to talk many things, but I just provided my view at the high level. But if you go through these blogs and then download this paper, right, you would able to understand more in detail. And similarly for the video edge, there is another article that I have published. And there are in this paper also, in this blog also, you'll have an download available, and that will give you more information on the challenges. How do you handle the video data at the edge of the network, and what are the video quality parameters that needs to be considered? So all those information, right, has been pretty much provided, and in the infotainment blog is also available. So in a car, these are the three major elements, right, which is critically needed, to build any solution. One in telematics, the other one is the safety, the third one is the infotainment, then the fourth one is the the connectivity part that I talked about, seamless connectivity. This is the other area. So these four areas are very crucial and important, and the blogs and the papers, the articles which are embedded as a part of this blog will help you to understand to a greater extent. So yeah, so ma'am, I think we have covered with the timing, right? Kritika ma'am?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So
So you can take 5 to 10 minutes to conclude.
okay, fine ma'am. Okay. So some of the other information what I also would like to talk about is the 5G. So as the 5G is evolving today, right, in the car ecosystem, people are also looking at the 5G as an element to see that, right, how do you bring out much more applications and much more use cases as well. With 5G, the trend which is evolving is called CV2X, cellular V2X. That will help you to bring out communication from one car to another car, from one vehicle to another vehicle. It's a vehicle to infrastructure, vehicle to network, a vehicle to pedestrian, vehicle to vehicle. Some of the use cases or the aspects, right, that been considered from your the 5G technology standpoint. So this is something as an emerging trend I'm talking about. So that you guys understand the way, right? The things are evolving. The another trend what you also see is the digital twin. Okay, so digital twin is the other aspects, right? That is also happening to an extent. Where one of the use case that you always see is more relevant, right? Because when we drive the car, so while we are driving, right, we always needs to watch list the display panel. At the same time, we also needs to watch the road. Sometimes it's very hard for the driver to look at two endpoints and then take some decisions, right? When you want to move from one location to another location. Even I too have challenges in US, like because you need to go at the speed of 70-75 miles per hour on the highway, and you have to keep watching the road on the display and then see that which path I need to take, and then sometimes it becomes no challenge for the drivers as well. So the way the digital twin is also emerging for one of the scenario is to augment the aspects right on your on your on your window, so that will help you for the driver to know the look at the road as well as the know the location path, and that becomes a converged view, right? So that the driver doesn't get distracted by looking at the two endpoints and then no and then take a decision. This is one of the other aspect from a digital twin perspective. And the other angle of the digital twin is more about right monitoring your car performance when you give you a car for any maintenance work, right? The maintenance team would like to have a better technology to see that and how this whole car, the engine and the other aspects are performing. So you're able to get the the entire view of your the mechanical ecosystem. So you're trying to have your physical world and the digital world enabled in one way to see that how do you analyze a lot of data that gets generated from the car and see that right how this whole car has been performing. Augmented reality is one such application, right, that you try to bring it out as a part of digital twin, and then how do you superimpose the vision on top of your application and able to see that how the physical and the digital world is all about. So digital twin is quite promising in a way to see that how do you bring out your the real world and then the digital world, and then able to perform various activities as well. So there are a lot of software tools that are available, and there is a trend happening in the context of digital twin as well. So this is one information I thought I will share. The other information is more about the autonomous car. So there are different levels, right, that been considered, and level 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Today we are at a level 4 scenario, right, where Waymo a car is one of the classical example to see, right, how this the automation is being enabled to a greater extent. And then the other trend is your level 5. It will be true driverless cars. So you have level 0 or you have level 1. There is some driver assisted, and then you bring out some automation. Then you have partial automation. Then you have conditional automation. Now there is an high automation. So likewise, right, the levels are being defined, and that's the way, right, the roadmap plans has been created in the context of autonomous car. And these are the various chipsets, right, that you have to consider, for building your car head unit ecosystem. So as I mentioned, if you want to process a lot of data, okay, closer to the network today, I know the chipsets, aspects are very important. So the chipsets from Qualcomm, Broadcom, right, NXP, so all the high-end chipsets which are coming out in the market, and people use some of these chipsets. To build an head unit platform where you would able to manage a lot of data on the edge of the car network. And for CV2X also, Qualcomm have a lot have created a chipset. Using the chipset you'll be able to communicate to other vehicles as well. So these are the trends that are happening. And yeah, from an evaluation standpoint, as I mentioned, car connectivity with the home is becoming one of the other trend, so that your car network and the home network now can get connected and then able to control some devices, or you can automate certain devices the moment you get into home, from office. So the car network connects with the home network, and then you'll be able to make some automation aspects. And then you would also, the entertainment is one part I talked about it. Autonomous driving is the other part. And then, the vehicle telematics, and then the safety part. So this is so, right, the evaluation, it's evolving, and a lot of research, keeps happening on these trends as well. These are the, the industry-driven use cases, largely, right, that you'll be able to see in various ways. So whatever we talked about, connectivity with the home, and then location-based services, emergency services, infotainment, and then remote diagnostics, emergency call, driver monitoring, fleet management, vehicle monitoring, are the the industry-driven use cases. And for these use cases, how do you bring out the technologies, software, hardware elements in a way to realize the vision out of it. So this list is too big. So if you get into automotive space, you'll see so many players, and they who are involved in different aspects, from SOC perspective, from software perspective, from OEMs, connectivity providers, application platforms, apps. This is a very big ecosystem, and many players are there, who are bringing out their value back. So obviously, the OEMs are the guys who manufactures a car, but to OEMs, there are multiple players, right, who work with the OEMs to build this, the entire ecosystem. Yeah, I think that's the summary. I just want to bring it out. So, in a nutshell, if you look at it, the car has three broader aspects. So, one in terms of telematics, one in terms of infotainment, and the other element is in terms of V2X. And today, if you see from an the data standpoint, huge amount of data gets generated from one single car. And in order to manage this amount of data, obviously, you need to have a better mechanism to do the data processing, data monetization, data management. And the expectation is about 360 millions of cars, right, and the connected cars. If you see in 2020, there are so much of connected cars, right, which are already there. And then how this evolvement will happening. There are 5G enabled cars, which is also started coming, from 2020 onwards. So the evaluation is happening. So we need to so that's how, right, the market is moving on. And there is a standard of 5G triple E, which is something providing a lot of details. So whoever is interested, right, you can refer to this 5G triple E Automotive Association, to see that, right, what are the things, right, that has been covered. So yeah, so that's the aspect of the edge computing that I want to bring it out as a part of this session. So if you have any questions, I'll be.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for the enlightening deliberation. And I am sure that this session has enlightened the participants about the connected vehicles, because there are a number of questions by the participants which I like to take up with your permission.
Yeah, ma'am, please.
So first question, we hear the terms connected vehicles, autonomous vehicle, and driverless vehicles. So are they same, or somewhere down the line there is a bit of overlapping?
Yeah, there will be some sort of overlap. So when we talk about connected vehicles, right, it's more about connecting the various gadgets, devices, within the car, and then how do you also bring out connectivity outside of the car is what the definition is all about. The connected vehicles. When we talk about autonomous or driverless vehicles, is all about the levels, right, that I was referring out here. So this is what the autonomous car or the driverless car is all about. So when you get into level 5, then it becomes true driverless cars, and that's the definition, right? The industry has been created so far. So when we talk about autonomous car, it has different levels, but there is an connectivity with the driver, which is anyway being brought. For example, if you look at level 1, there is a driver assisted functionalities which is also there. But when we get into level 5, then it becomes the pure driverless car. And when we talk about connected vehicles, as a definition, it's about providing connectivity with the drivers, passengers, and also with the other devices, the network infrastructure, that comes into picture. So that's a definition of connected vehicles.
Thank you, sir. The next question we have: how shall connected vehicles communicate with each other in a country like India, where we have a wide variation in vehicles in terms of their life, as well as driver discipline and road quality are again questionable?
That's a good question, ma'am. Connected vehicles in India, anyway, it's not something the way we see, right? The things are evolving across the globe. I know would happen in India very quickly. So today in India, if you look at from a connected vehicle standpoint, it's more about connecting the phones, to your car ecosystem. Right. Even if you spend 8 lakhs of money right, to buy a car. So the way it's quite evolving in the connected car ecosystem is about connecting the phone to the head unit platform, either over over Bluetooth or over US-based board trend, which is happening. And the other element, if you see, from the connectivity standpoint, it's more about having an OBD module, which is a third-party module that you plug it externally to the car, and then you would able to collect the data from the car and then have a mobile application running on the phone and able to monitor it. So I think that question itself, I can split it up into three sub parts. So one of the part is um, uh, more about connected vehicles in India. How we see it's something more which is happening today. It's about connecting the phone to the head unit platform, and then providing some sort of convenience to the drivers, from a navigation as well as from an emergency call, incoming call, right, that you would able to handle it, and then monitoring the car performance through via OBD. So I'm not sure if there are any high-end cars that comes with a wireless connectivity by default that should help to have data transmission to the existing cellular network, and then look at some of the road conditions as well. But there are apps which are being created, and you try to run those apps. It will some of these elements in the context of road safety, any accidents, right, also gets embedded into the app, and then the driver would be able to see that information via that application as well. So that's what we could see today. Right. Even in US, there is an app called Waze. So that if you activate that Waze application, you lot of other information in terms of the accidents and then the road conditions are all embedded into that app. So the driver knows that okay, this is not the path I need to take, or there is an accident happen, I need to know diversify myself into a different path altogether. So that real-time information is something right, which is more crucial, and that's a way, right. Today's system works. But in India, I'm sure that it's not been embedded as a part of the car ecosystem. Via another app, you would able to have those information available.
Absolutely, sir. I think with the number of questions we have, we'll require one session, one complete separate session for the question and answers.
Answering the questions.
But we'll take up one last question. The one of the a few of the participants would like to know. Please also shed some light on the data security aspect of edge. Like all like connected cars, all data is going onto the edge. So how secure is the data going to be over there?
Yeah, ma'am. So I was just sharing these two screens, right? Like the most critical part, I think that's a very good question. And today, security plays a very, very major role. And in fact, in Capgemini, we have a separate practice group called security to see that, right? How do we help our customers in looking at the various aspects, from a data management standpoint. From a security, if you look at it, anything that you try to have it from the software standpoint, whether in terms of encryption or decryption or a keys exchange, no, it is very likely that no people can hack the data. So in order to overcome some of these challenges, right, there is a trend which is evolving called hardware-based security part, what we call it as TPM. It's called a trusted platform module, or we call it as a trusted execution environment. So this particular hardware module gets embedded as a part of your application processor to see that, right, how you would be able to handle all the data that gets generated from the car being stored safely in the particular secured element of the chipset that comes as a part of the application processor, and then how do you communicate more safely to the outside world as well. But in order to manage the various car data within the ecosystem, these are some of the techniques typically being used in the car hidden platform. And another important element when you do the programming, there is a separate security guidelines also. People have to consider to a greater extent to see that how do I am managing all my the logics in terms of allocating memory, deallocating memory. That's the other angle of looking at from a security standpoint, because any loose level of coding also leads into some security hacking way, right, where we have seen practically in some of the customer programs. So that's the other aspect to see that, right, how do you also take care of from the programming standpoint, how do we also take care of from the embedded system standpoint to store various information in a more secure manner as well.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for the wonderful session today. I would now request Professor M.N. Huda, sir, Director, Bharati Vidyapeeth Institute of Computer Applications and Management, to honor, sir, for this wonderful session with this certificate.
So thank you so much, Mr. Vijay. Now I think if you have not taken breakfast at US, now you are free to take breakfast. And this certificate is not for the purpose of certification, rather for the purpose of remembrance that
Mm.
once again you have been a valued speaker for this wonderful and lovely webinar, which of course in a short span of around 1 hour you have explained nicely how and where we are going to embrace and in which way the connected vehicles and in which way the industrial revolution 4.0 is going to bring overall change in the society, particularly technological front. So thank you so much. And dear participants, he was Mr. Vijay Anand from United States of America, our valued speaker. Earlier also he has delivered sessions on this platform talking to all of us from America, and let's now allow him to take his breakfast because we disturbed him right in the
No,
morning because there's so much of time gap because of the difference of the time zone from India and America. So thank you so much, and this memento is again for the purpose of remembrance. So thank you so much.
thank you, sir. Thanks for providing an opportunity and to be part of this session, sir. Much appreciated.
And
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks for all the
thank you
latest.
so much.
Thank
And
you.
Yeah, thanks.
this meeting room is now converted into a facilitation center, help desk to ensure that all of you get certificates. But please remember, if you fill up the feedback form, then only you will be in a position to get certificate. My team members cannot write your certificate and send you. You have to fill up your own feedback form. And while filling feedback form, please understand, write your name, your organization, means your college, your company, your institution's name in abbreviated form so that it should not go to the third line, only one line space is being given. And my team member led by Dr. Ritika, Mr. Uttam, Mr. Manish, they are here in the Health Facilitation Center. If you are not getting the feed certificate in time in your inbox, they will be in a position to facilitate and tell you where is in which Google Drive and what is the link where your certificate is, where from you can download your certificate. But it is up to you to fill up the feedback form. The link has already been shared. And while filling it up, please remember that write any Gmail ID. Ideally, our Google API, which we have configured for certificates, fetch data from the feedback form, creates a certificate, write it PDFs, and then attach it in a mail and send it to your inbox. It should be delivered within a minute. And if you are not getting, please check your spam folder. Even if you are not getting, write your email ID as well as name in the chat window. No other medium, WhatsApp, email, telephone call, etc., will be of any use. So do write your details in the chat window. Once you get it, write thanks, and then let's join next week. And as I said that फूलों की तरह फिर खिलेंगे हम, फूलों की तरह फिर खिलेंगे हम, और अगले सैटरडे एक नए टॉपिक के साथ फिर मिलेंगे हम. थैंक यू सो मच. विश यू ऑल द बेस्ट. ओवर टू